welcome back to Thursday Night Live with the boys here. We always have some interesting guests. Tonight is no different. Tonight is the coach that I talk about all the time when I talk about the running that I do, the man behind teaching me how to put one foot in front of the other, like Pat likes to say it. Dave has been kind of a pillar in the community for many years. He has done charity work in the community. He has coached so many different people how to run triathlons. He himself is a triathlete, marathon runner. He just finished a marathon, in fact, in California, I believe, which he did amazing. He may not feel that way, but he did amazing. And he also is the owner of one of the franchises of Runner's Life. Very successful business where he helps many people achieve their dreams in becoming a runner. In fact, he is the reason that I'm doing the Chile Half Marathon, because I didn't think it was possible that I even do it. And Dave has always encouraged me from the moment that he heard I was going to do a 5K that, yeah, you can do it. It's not a problem. You're going to be able to do it. Dave, it's such a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about, so way back when Dave was a little young man, way back in Peterborough, did you start the business or did you start the running? What came first? Like how did you progress from where you were back then to where you are now? Like what were your motivators? Where did you come from to end up with such a successful business in Peterborough that survived a pandemic, which we'll get to too?
Yeah, no, but thanks for having me. And yeah, we're going deep diving here. This is great.
Deep diving.
Yeah, so I'm lucky. I'm one of the few people I know that knew what they wanted to do from an early age. Like, I think I was 19 years old when I decided I want to be a running store owner. And I know a lot of interesting people now that still don't have a clue what they want to do with their lives. And so I feel pretty lucky to do exactly what I wanted to do. It was the ice storm back in Kingston. I was there and I was going to school and I was working part-time at a running store, just like my own. And they shut down all the power and stuff. But the store I worked at had power and I went in for free just to drink coffee and talk about running. And I realized I'll do this for free. This is a job. That's what I should do. A job that I don't even feel like I need to get money to do. So shifted gears and decided to put all my energy towards that. So I was pretty lucky and went through the route. Worked for New Balance for a few years, learned the business, and then eventually got my own store here in Peterborough. So we grew up in Toronto, my wife and I, but we met in Kingston, and then we both wanted to stay in a small town. Eyed up Peterborough as a town that needed a running store. You just see a hole in the market, and you should be selling X amount of ASICS shoes in a market this big. And they weren't, so it could use a store. So took a chance with my wife. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time, and she was looking for a change, and we moved in together and rented a place in Peterborough. And the rest, I think, is history. So we married, we settled in Peterborough. We quite enjoy Peterborough. We're, if you enjoy outdoor stuff, swimming, biking, running, Nordic skiing, all that stuff, you want to stay far away from Toronto. But we both have family in Toronto, so we wanted to keep that as an option, be close enough. So we ended up in Peterborough. We quite enjoy it now, and now we consider this home. So the store will be 20 years old next month, and been married to my wife for 20 years. So yeah, here we are, and I'm really passionate. I'm lucky. I'm passionate about what I do, and I love it. I don't consider it to be a job. Like, I think if I won the lottery tomorrow, I wouldn't really change too much.
That's fantastic, David. And David, thanks again for joining us tonight. You are a name that has been kind of pumped around here a while. James sings your praises and talks very highly of what you and your organization does. And the profiteers out there that have been following us for a while, that have kind of taken this journey with James and his running, and coming from, a guy that was not a runner by any means, to where he is now, where, a year ago, if you had asked me about him doing, 20K, that sort of thing, I've got this running joke that we always run, that I've got a car, I just drive. So it's a pretty interesting aspect where, you know, you've been this name that we've heard about for a long time. So thank you for joining us. So at 19 years old, you decide that you want to be a runner. Were you an athlete before? Were you a sports person, or were you always a runner? How did this start?
Yeah, so I've always been into athletics, and I was a runner and I was a triathlete. But that's the age I decided I wanted to own my running store. That was going to be my career. But no, I joined cross country in high school, a cross country running team in high school. And I used to think running was ridiculous. And, you know, that was for the nerds.
Yeah.
You know, I was into all the ball sports. You know, I played basketball and volleyball and baseball. And then I realized that there was a cute girl in the cross country team, and cross country was the only sport that has the boys and the girls together. So you train together, you're always together. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. And then I went to my first cross country meet, and I was like, well, this was really cool. Like, it was, you know, no lucky bounces. It was me versus myself. And to this day, that's who we're all competing against, whether you know it or not. So I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect. And of course, my love of running just blossomed and grew, and triathlon comes from that. Every runner gets sucked into triathlon eventually, because you get hurt, you get injured, and then you start riding a bike and you're like, well, that's pretty fun too.
Cool.
So it just morphs fairly organically. And I still love it. It's still my passion. I still train every day and still enjoy racing. I love the process.
So I want you to give me your elevator pitch, okay? So this is a guy who I played decent level sports growing up. And for me, you know, take a lap was a form of punishment. Sure. Like, if you drop the ball, you're running. You miss a play, you're running. All that sort of thing. So I'm 36 years old. Running to the fridge is about as far as I'm running at this point in my life. And I realize that that's something that I've got to characteristically address at some point in my day. What do you say to someone like that, who maybe is a past athlete, but, you know, running, like, you kind of nailed it. It was a bit of a nerdy thing. Maybe it was a punishment, I know, for myself for a very long time. How do you address that with somebody and try to focus them again on being like, hey, running is something that benefits you in all facets?
Yeah, it's a hard sell. And mostly people who don't enjoy running, it's not going to stick. And I tell everyone, like, running's good for people who like running.
Right.
So, you know, it's not, I've seen so many people join our groups, and, you know, they have to be fit, and it doesn't work out for them. So people should, you know, I guess that, you know, you're mid-30s now. It's the age where you have to do something.
Right.
So you got to do something. I don't care if it's squash or hockey or lacrosse, but you got to do something. But all those activities, there's huge barriers to entry. Like, you need a team, you need to book a night, you need to drive somewhere. So now it becomes a challenge, and thus we all, you know, are challenging to stay healthy. Running is the most barrier-free entry thing you can do. You need to buy a good pair of shoes, and then you get out the door. It's open 24/7 out there. And so we all have very limited time as we get older. So doctor says I have to be healthy. I got to do something. Great. I'll run or I'll walk, and I can do 5K. And so that's the real pitch is, you know, you have to do something. You run or walk, maybe even hate it. You're probably not going to stick with it if you hate it. But I know a lot of people that at least it's something for them, and they'll do it 3-4 times a week. And that's enough to be a healthy human.
Right. And,
you know, playing hockey, I played beer league hockey for many years. We had a runner's life team. Okay. I just tried to go back last year. We have a young daughter, 8 years old. And I thought, okay, I've got my life together enough now. I'm going to go back and play hockey. I joined the league. And I made it out to about 4 games because it was just too much to get in the car, drive there, do all the change room stuff. So, you know, the 1 hour of hockey is actually 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, and mandatory beer in the change room. You know, I played early morning hockey thinking, okay, that would make it better.
Yep.
And ended up bringing a beer in the change room. The guys are like, it's 9:30 in the morning. And I was like,
hey,
yeah,
Dave, 9 a.m., pal. What are we doing? Dave.
But then the next week, a lot of the guys showed up with beer as well. So,
trendsetter.
So it's just it's an easy activity, and then I've become addicted to the endorphins and the loneliness of a long distance runner and all that stuff. So I enjoy running with a group, but I also enjoy running by myself with a good podcast. I'm definitely going to check out some back issues from you guys. But
Nice.
that is just, to me, it's just like meditation. Like miles can pass by and a good podcast. And the next thing I know, it's like, wow, I've done 8K and, no problem at all.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's my pitch on running.
Yeah, and I talk about that all the time, actually, Dave. I had a whole episode on meditation and how meditation doesn't have to be like sitting quiet, like running. That is my meditation. Like the thoughts that I deal with, the problems I solve while doing long distance running is incredible. And you're absolutely right. It's one of those things that you have to like, you have to love, but you just have to start it. If you start small, you'll know if you like it. You can just start by, like, what I did is I ran for a minute. I walked for a minute, really, is all I did until I was able to run 5K. And then that's when I joined you guys. And to tell you the truth, Runner's Life well, Dave being the coach and the people in it, there are so many coaches in your group now that, you're a fabulous coach. And obviously you're the head coach, but there are all these others like Kathy and all these other people that have so much knowledge and wisdom and really know running so well that you feel supported no matter what you're doing. And sometimes when you're running, like you said, you're in a running group, James, you shouldn't be running alone. You tell me that all the time because I usually end up in the middle. But you learn so much because you have these great conversations with people that you might not have conversations with because we're like a multi-age group. It's not like hockey where you're all the same age, or basketball where you're all the same age. We have people that are like 19 all the way up to 70, I think. I'm not exactly sure. So the level of information and communication is just outstanding. And Dave, you built like this just beautiful, supportive. I walked in terrified because I thought, this is a runners group. Like, what? I don't belong here. Like, I can barely run 5K and not like throw up. But as soon as I walked in, you guys were like, no, you belong here. This is how we all started. Get in here. We're going to teach it. And now it's huge. It's unbelievable. We're running in the rain. We're running in the snow together. The camaraderie that you develop through this sport is unbelievable. So I get what you're saying. And the fact that I liked how you started that, I went and I wasn't being paid and I loved it. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think it's incredible because there are so many people out there that aren't doing what they're doing. But I did want to ask you a question. So way back when you mentioned that you joined cross country for a girl, is it the girl?
Different girl.
Oh,
yeah, different girl. But when you're in high school, you would hope that you're with a different girl now. So yeah, no, it's it's a great teenage sport for sure, right? Like you got a bunch of young fit girls, and you're a teenage boy with hormones.
Girls are a great teenage sport. You're right.
Yes. Yeah. No,
terrible.
It's great. You're right. There's a lot of coaches in the group. The group is it's very welcoming. I know it's intimidating to come, and James is he's got a great success story for people who don't know it. Lost a lot of weight. Maybe your regular viewers do. And I see a ton of people coming in trying to drop weight and stuff, but most people are unsuccessful. Like you're one of the few that actually did it. Thank you. So, it's a hard thing to do and you actually achieved it. So that's, kudos to you.
Appreciate that.
So Dave, it sounds like, obviously, like I said, your name's been tossed around here a while now through this journey with James, but it sounds like you've built a grassroots community in Peterborough. Can you kind of comment on what that looks like, how you did that, how you've developed that over the years? Because it's taken you many years, but you've built a beautiful, beautiful business.
Yeah. So I think building a community was definitely the thing. Like, I could have opened a running store in Toronto, still could. And there is only one Runner's Life. There's no franchises. There's just one. It's just my store. And
really?
There's no more anywhere else. Yeah.
They were a franchise, correct?
It looks like a franchise store.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. Hopefully that's how you meant it.
Yeah.
That is how I meant it.
Okay.
I totally was convinced. It's so well put together.
Thanks.
That is wild. Sorry. You could easily franchise. Pat and I will talk to you after this show.
Yeah. I could open a Runner's Life in Toronto and you'd make a killing there, right? Because there's just, again, you should be selling X amount of shoes, you're not, so you're filling a hole in the market. But I decided early on, like I don't want, just to make money doesn't motivate me. Building a community motivates me. Like, this is where I'm raising my family. We're here, and I think you have to be part of the community. So being part of the community is a big part of it. But then I wanted to build something that was, a group that would help each other, that would be more than just a training center.
Right.
I want it to be social as well, because I think none of us are going pro. We all just need to have a good run and a balance. And I think that's, for me, it's a run and a beer. And so if you have that kind of camaraderie, I think you're going to show up, and I think you're going to be a lifelong runner. And so my goal was always to build lifelong runners. And, our beginner running program, I ran for years, and I actually stopped because it drove me nuts. Because I'd put my heart and soul into, getting people to their first 5K and, 20-week program. They'd finish the Beat Beethoven run. And I'd be like, okay, guys, this is great. And they'd be like, yeah, that was great, Dave. Thanks so much. I'm going to go try kayaking now. And I was like, oh my God, it would just break my heart. I put everything into it. And so, I wanted to build more of something that was, structured so that this is for lifelong people, and people come in and out, and that faces change. And I think all that's really healthy. But people can come back as as their lives change and things like that. And they know the door's always there. And our workouts, they've been pretty much the same for 20 years. We haven't changed. It's Tuesday, Thursday are the workouts, Monday's the pub run, and Saturday morning's the long run. Like, that's been the schedule for 20 years.
Pub run?
Pub run. Yeah. So Monday nights is the pub run.
Yeah.
So you go for a run around Little Lake. It's the same route every week. It's 6 to 10K. And then you go to the pub at McThirsty's is right next door to us, and you have a pint. And they used to give us free nachos, but they don't anymore. So now you just have a pint. But yeah, so
and this is what night?
This is Monday night, 6:00.
That's brilliant.
Sounds like Pat's night.
Yeah.
That sounds like I could probably sneak in for a pub run. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just meet you thirsty. So I think that's how that works. No.
Yeah, but there's generally beverages after every run. So
that's perfect.
It is
again,
good.
like that building of a community, that's something that people can be friendly, they can come back and see. We talk a lot about the things that are going on in Peterborough right now specifically, and you're a downtown business. And yesterday we had an opportunity to interview a few folks from the Path, which is a homeless, how's the best way to put this? A homeless advocacy group. They're trying to get some small homes for people in the area. And you, as a small town business, you're kind of on the front lines of what is going on in our downtown core right now. So how do you feel that you've seen Peterborough change over the last, you're saying almost 20 years of business? And do you think there's hope at the end of the kind of light at the end of the tunnel for where we are?
Well, I have to be hopeful because, my business depends on it.
Right.
But I have to say I've had it. I've had it.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge homeless advocate. I've been on the board for the Yes Shelter, the youth emergency shelter. I did 9 years on that board, and I just got off it like 6 months ago. So, I see the homeless guys in front of my store every time, and I think, well, what am I doing? And so I volunteer at the Yes Shelter, and I put in more than my fair share. And I'm pretty well versed on the homeless situation in Peterborough. I think more than most, just because I had an insider's look at it. And so it's never been worse than it is right now. The pandemic definitely was like throwing kerosene on a slow burning fire. Now it just exploded.
Right.
I mean, rents went through the roof. A whole bunch of other things through the pandemic with the homeless, and but I'm fed up. I've had it. I think we need to switch gears because what we've been trying is not working. It's getting worse. So I'm a huge homeless advocate, but I think it's time to, this sounds horrible. But drop the hammer.
Right.
I think it's time to crack down on the bus shelters. You can't have people living in your bus shelters.
Right.
I think it's time to enforce, some trespassing, and, you can't be here.
Right.
You can't just be at Millennium Park. We we run by that every day, and there's people camping out on the Silver Beans front patio. And I'm like, how did it come to this? And look, we had our time of, well, let's leave them alone. You know, they have nowhere else to go. And that, none of that's actually true. They do have places to go. So, you know, we count the people every year. And I think the last count, there was 165. Don't quote me on that, but it's a rough estimate of how many homeless people we have in Peterborough. It's not an outrageous number. We can house these people. There are a lot of beds that are being unused. They're just not, people are not being, I don't want to say forced to be there, but they're given other options. And especially in the summer, you could stay outside because it's, you know, who wouldn't want to get high and stay outside in a tent in the Millennium Park? Sounds great to me, but we can't have that, not in a functioning society. So, you know, I know what the people with the tiny homes are up to. I followed the last council meeting. They lost that vote, but it just wasn't a well thought out plan. You can't just, you know, take some zone land and throw people there on tiny houses. Like,
so I think Dave, sorry to cut you off. So Pat has a well thought out plan, but I don't think that they promoted it in the right way. So we had a chance to talk to Scott yesterday. They have a great plan. Like if they could have, if one of their spokespersons could have got out there in front of this and educated the public, I think yesterday and the other one would have been far more successful. They're talking about how Elizabeth Fry will be on site. There'll be security on site. It's not going to be a flop house. You know, like if you have a place at your place, no one else is going to hang out there. They're going to be responsible for cleaning up. They have to pay to stay there. Like, so the ODSP that they get pays for part, you know, keeping it running. Like they have all of these structures that are in place that are fabulous, but they didn't get to say them. And I think that's part of the problem, is that the Peterborough public is exactly like you. It's how I felt. That's what I told Scott when we started the meeting, is that I don't know what tiny homes is, but I do know what tent city is. And if tiny homes is tent city, I don't want that anywhere near me. I don't want a stable structure of tent city. I don't want that. And he said, well, it's not that. And then he started explaining how that's their plan. So we were kind of excited about it. We're planning on interviewing some more people about it just to get a clearer message of what it is. But I think they just weren't prepared for that meeting in a way that they should have been prepared. I think partly it's because sometimes we believe, you know, well, we got to help the homeless. Like, it's a no-brainer. So come on, give us the land, we'll walk in. I wonder if it was part of that, you know, so they weren't as prepared. But I'm unclear. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for me, the situation of Path, I think that they are an interesting organization with an interesting plan. But like we've talked about before, is that they are going to be one spoke in the wheel. The other structures that need to be established in our community here, they need help. This is potentially one avenue, but they have a messaging problem, and that's what we're trying to do with some of these interviews that we're doing. Is that in some ways, they're a group of very angry people that are demanding something, and right, wrong, or indifferent, what you view their, you know, moral viewpoint on it. I think everyone can probably agree that homelessness is a concern and an urgent problem, but it seems like they only get traction when they're yelling. And what we're hoping to do with them is try to help them get some traction with, you know, the average Peterborean. And be like, hey, this is why this is beneficial for everybody, and let's see if we can help out our neighbors. So I'm excited for Path. I do think that they are going to be one part of a multi-dimensional process that needs to be put in place, and what that looks like. Unfortunately, it doesn't very much seem like anything is going to be done this year. This is going to be a long-term strategy, and we'll see. It's interesting. But so being downtown, you're seeing this firsthand, and you're probably, you know, interacting with these individuals on a daily basis, where, you know, I live in the West End. I don't.
But you bring up a good point. So Dave, you should tell us a little bit about your initiative with the shoes, because I think it's fabulous. When I first heard about it, I thought it was just amazing.
Yeah, so that's an easy one. So runners blow through their shoes pretty quick, and they look fine, but they're just compressed. So anyway, they just throw them in the landfill. So we collect them all and we donate them all to the homeless. So
No way.
yeah, so every Peterborough homeless person has got pretty baller shoes. And
I love that.
Yeah. You look at them and they're, I just donated my $300 carbon fiber racing shoes. And I saw them on a homeless guy the other day, and it's pretty cool, right? So at least it's one little thing that we can do. So all the runners know to donate the shoes. We raise a couple thousand pairs a year, and it's not just running shoes; it's boots, it's sandals, it's everything. Yeah, and so we drop them off at Brock Street Mission, the Yes Shelter, Cameron House, and they know what they are now. And the guys, they see us coming in with the garbage bags, and they know what's in them, and they get really excited. And they help me unload the car now because they want first picks on the right shoes and the right size.
See, and David, that to me goes to be the community piece, right? Like, you're a downtown business. You have this very niche opportunity with these really top end products that you have, and they're going out your back door, and you're helping this community. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, is whether it's Path, whether it's your organization, whether it's all of these in tandem, we can kind of help. It's where we are right now is that it feels like people are like, it's just not getting better. And it hasn't in 3 years. And it was almost like a war of attrition. We were just satiated with, we're not going to do anything. It's really upsetting to watch, but what do we do? And it's fantastic to hear about these little initiatives around. And 1,000 pairs of shoes is not little. No. That's a ton of cash walking out the door. And I love that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think the old council had a lot to do with the complacency of what we did with the homeless, which was not much. We allowed Tent City to exist and things like that. So I'm optimistic, and I got my fingers crossed with the new council. And I saw some movement on the very first meeting, right? My downtown town ward. I live downtown. I work downtown. So my counselors, Alex and Joy, were the ones that put that motion forward, and they voted for it. And one other counselor did. I forget who. But they were the only three. But it wasn't, I'm not against tiny homes. I think it's a great idea, but it just wasn't thought up well enough to be brought to council in the very first meeting.
No.
So I'm optimistic that the new council, at least they're doing something. So, I give them a lot of kudos for that. Like, they're taking a swing. And,
do you think, David, that probably the last election, one of the linchpin topics was the homeless issue, whether in the municipality here or whether Ontario-wide, nationwide? Do you think that this is really becoming a hot button topic with the opioid, the addiction problems, the homelessness, the poverty? Like, I feel very much like these are the next 5 years potentially of hot button political arguments. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's isolated, because it's always a downtown problem. Like, you go to the West End, you don't see any of this stuff.
No.
But every town out there, if you have a crappy downtown, you got a crappy town.
Right.
Like, you name me the good towns out there, the Kingstons of the world, the Ottawas. Well, the downtown is strong.
Yeah.
You name me the crappy towns, the Hamiltons and stuff. Well, it's because the downtown is crappy.
Yeah.
And so, although this problem really affects mostly downtown people, it means your whole town is going to be crappy if you don't address it. So I think it's a major issue, and people who don't see it every day can just easily say, well, that's not my problem. I'll just not go downtown. They're going to live on Lansdowne Street and go to Boston Pizza and hit the chain restaurants. And I'm like, I don't, that's not for me, right? Like, I want to be at a unique spot. I want to support local businesses. And so I live and I work downtown, and we eat at restaurants downtown, and I shop downtown. Yeah. So that's a big part of my world. But I think you could easily avoid in Peterborough, and our little population of, 80, 90,000, it's probably a small percentage of that is downtown. Mm-hmm. So I think every town is facing it. This is not a unique Peterborough issue, but I think for most people, it's not an important issue.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not downtown and it's not a part of your daily commute or drive, or your office is down there, you don't have to walk over somebody sleeping on the streets, perhaps. And it's just like you say. Yeah.
Or sleeping in front of someone's business. Because quite often at night, when I'm when I'm walking or checking things out, they're sleeping right in front of people's doors because they have no other place to sleep. It's probably the safest. There's cameras watching, so they're safer to be there. But the conversations I have with friends are, they want to go to Boston Pizza. They want to go to all those fringe places because they come downtown And by the time you leave your car and get to the restaurant that you want to go to, 4 people have asked you for money. Or, you know, someone's come up and started yelling at you, or like there's a lot of like components going on in our downtown that's driving downtown business away, I think.
Yeah, it's not helping for sure. Like my neighbor packed it in, Charlotte's Web. They were 28 years in business, and they're a beautiful clothing store. But a lot of their clientele was, you know, not elderly, but your, you know, grandma's age. Mature women was probably their main client, and they just didn't feel safe coming downtown. Whether that's true or not, you know, perception's reality. So, you know, I know all the homeless people downtown. I know the harmless. I know who's harmless. I know, well, they're pretty much all harmless.
Yeah,
but they'll be yelling at you, you know, and so that can be a little bit intimidating. So if your perception is that downtown isn't safe, then you're just going to avoid it. And so Charlotte's Web, you know, they just said, like, look, our clientele is too afraid to come down. We're fighting it. It's really bad. And that's one business, you know, like there's 3 on my street that we lost due to COVID. And, you know, the homelessness being part of COVID, in my opinion.
100%.
So, yeah, so it's a major issue. And people don't realize, like, it does affect them. It affects them where it hits the most is in the wallet. Like, you know, the vast majority of your taxes are going to healthcare, policing, that kind of stuff. And all that money is spent downtown. So if you eliminated, you know, the homeless problem, the opioid addictions, you'd eliminate so much of the budget that could be spent on other things. So whether you live downtown, you're funding it. You know, your taxpayer dollars are funding mostly a downtown problem. And I laughed when they moved the homeless shelter to the West End, to the wellness center out there. I just laughed. I was like, now all of a sudden stuff's going to get done, because those people are not used to seeing. I jokingly call it the golden streets of the West End, because you know, it's nice houses and, you know, there's no homeless. And I'm like, now there's homeless wandering around down there. You watch how fast these people pick up their phones and call their counselors.
They didn't stay there long.
Well, and that's it. To be honest with you, it was. We had about 2 or 3 weeks of kind of transiency on the bus paths. You could see that there was, you know, and you get some of these older folks that are like,
what's going
on? And they cleaned out that wellness center lickety split.
Yes, they did. Yeah, we went for a few runs around there, and we saw a bunch of homeless people, a bunch of needles and things like that. And that the West End is just not ready or equipped for it. And so, they quickly moved them out of there. So it's, you know,
they also have the power in the ear of the people that are in power, because that's a lot of the money is over in that area.
Sure. Yeah, but
it's my taxes are almost $7,000 a year on my personal home. So it's, if I call and I go, hey, what are we doing? Like, what? I got a guy living on my lawn. What's going on? And again, I think that's part of the messaging issue that, you know, we've got to of, is that these people, like, at the end of the day, they're our neighbors, they're our family members, they're our friends, they're all these things that have just kind of fallen on hard times. And I think all too often we end up in this dialogue, very much like myself, where it's like they, them, like over there, who's that? Like, it's someone else. And David, obviously you've done some interesting stuff with the people locally, but I think that it's I am a upper middle class white dude from Peterborough. It's very they, them to me. I'm a 36-year-old guy, and up until the last 3 or 4 years, poverty I never saw it. What do you mean? So this is a world now that, you know, my daughter, other people's children are kind of driving around and seeing people living in bus shelters and in tents. And I think, like you're saying, David, is that the days of inaction are over. And what's that going to look like? And it does. It has to be a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach, and really kind of tackling some of these harder issues. And like, for you being a downtown business person, did you notice that when we kind of gentrified the downtown, and that is sometimes a bad word to people, did you find that when we opened up the patios during the summer, did you find that it was an improvement, or did you find that it was just still problematic for driving people downtown?
No, it was great. It was a huge beacon. People came downtown. You know, I talk to my neighbors all the time. McThirsty's had their 2 best summers ever.
Cool.
During COVID, because they were allowed to put a shot onto the street and do all that. Like, you know, it affects a few businesses. You always get some people squawking, you know, there was no parking in front of my store. It got taken up. But I was like, you know, it's bringing people downtown. People will walk to my store. I got no problem with this. But other downtown businesses squawked and said, hey, you took up 3 parking spots to build this patio.
Right.
You know, not looking at the bigger picture, in my opinion. Right. So again, everyone was worried about their little slice of it. But, you know, the restaurants, they ate it worse than everyone through the pandemic. Absolutely. I think we can all agree that, you know, I feel like we ate it as a retailer, but they ate it worse.
Yeah.
So anything we could do to help them. So that was a really good idea. And then it was so funny because this year they got pushback for building the exact same thing. You're like, well, now there's no pandemic. You can't have that anymore. And
really?
So Charlotte Street had to push hard to build their patios again. And they
was that through the DBIA that was like pro or anti? How did that kind of break down?
So the DBA was supporting its members, but they were talking to the city, and the city said initially no, Charlotte Street could not have patios. So Charlotte Street got a little petition going, and I signed it and said, well, why did we have this during the pandemic? Well, that was special circumstances. Like, well, it worked. Why can't we have those circumstances again? You know, we lost a lot of money in the last couple of years. You know, let's keep doing it. And they agreed to it, but you know, the initial thing was, go back to normal. Yeah. So no, it's a good downtown scene in the summer, like lots of patios, lots of life. Like I'd much prefer to go drinking downtown than you know, anywhere else in the city, and great unique restaurants with unique things that you can't get anywhere else. So yeah, that was, you know, I think when I go to any town, I'm not looking for the franchise. I'm always amazed that when people travel and they're like, they see the Taco Bell and they're like, oh, let's hit that. Like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I gotta try something new every place, like the brewery or the little pub or any place that has live music. That's the first place I go to. I agree. Like when they put in the patios, it was genius. Like, I don't know why we're not doing that every summer. Like, Peterborough is a tourist town and patios are touristy. Like if we keep those patios up, get the live music back on the streets. Like we used to have live music, like people just playing on every street corner and collecting money, like playing really good music. You know, it wasn't just people asking for money. It was like people playing music and singing, belting it out. And we had all the street festivals and stuff like that. I think we need to like really focus on getting that back, because we got to get people back into Peterborough. We got to get people to come for the summer and hang out and, you know, stay at the Holiday Inn and play down at the waterfront and all that stuff. And I think we do that by bringing back the Hootenanny. I don't think we had the Hootenanny last year, did we?
No, everything I think is going to start up again this year. So Music Fest came back this year, first year.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have Rib Fest, which is another big one downtown. They just weren't ready to it. I mean, the DBIA, I think Terry and his crew, you know, they're working hard, but they were definitely quieter than I would have liked to have seen them during the pandemic. But I don't know how tied their hands were with all that stuff. But I think we could all agree the pandemic's done.
Right.
But then again, it comes back to a little bit of the homelessness issue. Like, okay, I'm going to come downtown as a tourist and I'm going to see Tent City down there. Like that's not a great scene. So again, a little bit of cracking down on that stuff wouldn't hurt.
So what do you think in cracking down, David? What does that kind of look like for you? And again, you're immersed in this more than we are. Our whole viewpoint of this is trying to create a dialogue. So what we want to do, and this is where Soaring Profits was based on. When we started this, it was conversations that James and I would have. I tend to be far more conservative than our lefty liberal friend over here. But what we want to do is we want to have dialogue. We want to be able to exchange ideas and then like shake hands at the end of it. I can tell him to piss off afterwards. That's fine. But we're buddies at the end of it.
Yeah.
So this is where dialogue is important. And there's extremes on the left, there's extremes on the right. But like at the end of the day, we still have to do something. So what do you think? Like, where do you kind of think that, you know, actionable things that could happen Monday morning that we could be looking at in this community?
So it's enforcing the law. That's what cracking down on it means. So you can't set up your tent on public property. So we actually passed a bylaw over the pandemic to get rid of Tent City. And I actually was I emailed my counselor. I said, all of the counselors actually, and I said, please vote against this law. It passed unanimously.
Gotcha.
And what it says is between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., you're not allowed to be in the park. And that meant everyone. That meant me is going for
Right.
a run. You know, if I'm a shift worker, I can't go for a run in the park. Cops now have the right to stop me, ID me. This is against the law. And I thought that part was far overreaching.
Right.
But it gave them the power to move them along from tent city. So now it is against the law to have a tent on public property. So enforcing that will get people out of the bus shelters. All their tents that you see everywhere is illegal. So here's your trespassing notice. Okay, now we're going to trespass you. Now you have to go to jail. You know, and no one wants
So
to put.
I'm going to push back on you, David.
But how does that?
Yeah, so this is where we hear on the other side, and trust me, I'm probably far closer to your side of the things than I probably won't even admit. But how? Okay, so we arrest Tim. We're going to make him Tim, the homeless guy.
Yeah.
We arrest Tim tonight. We take him to jail. We say, hey, Tim, this is a problem. You can't be sitting there. And then Tim gets out because we can't keep Tim in jail for, inevitable. So now he's lost his tent. He's lost his house. He's lost it. Now, where does he go? And this is where I'm trying to figure out what the resources in Peterborough look like to be able to help.
Yeah.
So Tim has a place to go. So there are enough beds to house the homeless people, but there's no incentive for them to go because you can't be using while you're there. There's rules. And It's way more fun to have your own tent where you can live without rules. But now Tim has a place to go. It's in the Brock Street Mission, or depending on how old Tim is, the Yes Shelter. And then you also, in these places, get access to resources. 100% of the people out there has addiction problems and mental health issues. You're not solving homelessness without addressing those two things. But now, if you've got them housed, now you can start working on the other things. That was always our theory with the Yes Shelter. And this is research that backs this up. And this is me just quoting way smarter people who are
That's us. That's what we do here. So
yeah,
we talk about that all the time. We're not psychologists. We just make this stuff up.
Yeah. Number one was always house them, get them housed, because then you can work on all their other problems. And it used to be backwards. It used to be like, well, you're not coming to this house until you're clean and you got your shit together. And now that's reversed. So get them housed first. So Tim's got to go to a homeless shelter, and there is space for Tim in the homeless shelter.
Okay.
And then we can apply the resources to Tim's addictions and mental health issues, so that Tim can't live in the bus shelter and Tim is now getting help. But that takes a council and a mayor to crack down on homelessness, and that does not go over well.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. It is. It's such an emotional and hot button topic. And that's where, I've watched people here over the last little while we're kind of slowly immersing ourselves in this world. And it seems like it's there's either the activist or there's like a militant kind of, like there's a yell and then there's a demand. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, is that I think that a lot of these organizations that really mean that they really want to do good things, but their messaging is terrible. Like, they need PR people to come in and help.
Yeah, they almost have to sell themselves like Pepsi. But I think part of the problem, so Brock Mission is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say they're not. The Yes Shelter, amazing, well-run organization, but they're cookie cutter. They're just like our education system. They fit people, but they don't fit all people. So if I come in and I have a mental health issue that I become violent, I can't stay there.
Right.
So not everyone, Tim doesn't necessarily have a place to stay if he walks in the door and he starts, seeing the devil and starts yelling and screaming, or he steals something, or for whatever reason gets into a fight, or whatever it is. Brock Mission and the Yes Shelter is no place for them. Or, they leave. I don't know if they can leave. I don't know enough, but they go and they get high and they come back high. I don't believe they're allowed to stay, or that's what I've been told.
Yeah, you're right. So there's zero tolerance to violence. You'll get banned. And that happened. But that's not the vast majority of homeless people. The vast majority of homeless people are not violent. They're
I'm not saying they are.
So, I guess if we covered the vast majority of homeless problem, I'd be happy with that. If we got it down to a handful of the violent guys are left out there, I would take that as a huge win. So,
but what I'm saying is, if we don't build a stable environment for those other people to land on, we're going to cause bigger issues. So if we could find, I get what you're saying. If we don't force them from, I don't know that living in a tent is as fun as you described. Maybe in the summertime. Right now,
sure,
it would be. Right now, it would be a nightmare. In this, because I'm a camper, so I've done winter and I've done summer camping, and winter just sucks. Yeah. Summer sucks too. It has its own problems because you can't get clean. You can't do. There's a lot of things you can't do. But so we closed them all down, and I'm with you with the bus shelters. I think, if Millie, 70-year-old Millie, can't sit down while she waits for the bus in the hot sun, that's an issue that we need to deal with. But the tent cities, I think we need a location. We need some place that they can go and that's safe, that's taken care of. If we have to, we can police it until we can figure out a solution that makes sense. Maybe we get them to the Brock Mission. Maybe we build a tent city somewhere that's safe and they have the resources. We tried that already downtown. Downtown is not the place for it. We did that at Confederate Park, wasn't it?
Wolf,
yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, downtown. That was the first tent city that we were like fully supporting. And unfortunately, the people that were in the tent city took advantage. Had they not, they had Peterborough support them 100%. There wasn't a person in Peterborough that wasn't like, you know what, we're going to drop off goods, we're going to help them out. And then they started partying until 3 a.m. and yelling and screaming and leaving needles around and disrespecting what, was brought there. So I get what you're saying, but I know that you're saying it's a small group of people that have the mental health and the drug addiction problems that won't be able to be in Brock Mission long term. That's not true.
No. I said 100% of the people who are homeless have addiction and mental health issues. A small percentage have violent issues that won't allow them to stay in shelters.
I would say that the majority of not the majority, but a vast majority of the homeless people wouldn't be able to stay long term in the shelters and wouldn't be able to get ahead well in a shelter.
Well, we don't want them to stay long term in the shelter.
No, we don't.
No, the shelters
it's a stepping stone.
Ideally to be a stepping stone to get them on their feet. So we don't want them long term. We want to get them on their feet so that they can now thrive.
Well, and I think that's where the issue is that from what I understand is that the warming rooms in Peterborough have not opened yet this year. Is that from what I understand?
Probably not. It's not cold enough yet.
So is that how they're kind of designed, right? They're designed only in kind of emergency weather type scenarios. Yeah. I'm kind of ignorant. I'm slowly trying to catch myself up on this because for years, Dave, to be honest with you, I was the guy that drove by and was like, get a job, loser. Yeah. And, up until very recently, when realistically, as of probably this week, having some conversations with these people, and they kind of explained to me, it's like, yeah, but like, okay, we're going to put these supports out there, but you can't leave your tent to go over and have that shower 2 blocks away or to go get that meal a block and a half away because everything you own in that tent is going to be stolen from you as soon as you leave it. And you kind of go, yeah, shit, I guess that kind of calls a few things out. Now, that doesn't mean that's the end of the game. They're living in a tent. That's where I'm saying now is that we've got to come up with solutions to be able to do that. How do we facilitate these people? First of all, getting homes, getting housed, whatever that looks like. I'm a landlord in Peterborough, right? I remember going through the process here years ago when they started going after rooming houses. And it's like, you can really make rooming houses really, really, really awful places if you're going to crack down on them. If you're going to let natural market dynamics take hold and people go in and they kind of vote with their dollar and say, yeah, I'm willing to pay $500 a month for a room and in a nice home, you'll have people that can get lovely rooms and nice homes. But when you set parameters in your downtown that are going to be, if you set up a rooming house that we're coming in and it's not little fines, it's like $10,000 a pop. That is not a situation that I think is conducive to trying to find solutions. And I think that's probably part of the reason why we are where we are 5 years removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it wasn't a problem 3 years ago. We had no tent city 3 years ago. Nope. We just accepted that you're not going to live in a tent on public property. And there's enough beds in the homeless shelters for these people. It's when we stopped the enforcement and just turned the blind eye and said, yeah, stay in the park. Everyone has their space. I respect your will to be anywhere. Just leave them alone, man.
Right.
Like that. I don't think you're helping these people.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I, to be honest with you, I come from, criminal justice background as well. So, when you hear that type of conversation and enforcement, I often go to who's making that decision and on what larger, grander, program are they functioning on? What do they think that in enforcing laws and property rights of other people is somehow problematic? So that
why have laws if you're not going to enforce them? Like
Right.
they had this emergency session for council to pass this law to break Tent City, and now they did, and Tent City got taken down, and now they've just turned a blind eye to it. So why have laws if you're not going to enforce them?
So go ahead, sorry, Dave. I apologize.
So who's they? Is the it's council in a town of like Peterborough. It's council and the mayor. So it'd be their
discussions with the chief of police and saying that through our diversity and inclusion processes, for lack of a better term, because I don't know exactly what it would fall under, that we're going to allow people to sleep in our parks.
Would that be? Sorry, I missed the question there.
Because I would argue that the enforcement side of this is either you're going to have the bylaw officers, or you're going to have the police that's enforcing this. So first of all, to have kind of a criminal offense, you have to have the law that's broken, you have to have fines committing, or you have to have a reasonable suspicion. So when you have that sort of thing, over on Water Street, is there a police chief that was sitting there for years that said, we're not doing this? Or was it council that went to them and said, we don't want you to do this? And then where does that buck stop in that process? Obviously, we've had a change of chief recently here, and for the better, for the worse, who knows? We'll see. But if that's a directive from these people that we've put in power, they should be running on that. They should be elected for or against that. Should they not?
They should, and they've been elected for being for Tent City. So I mean, both the councillors in my ward were elected with, my opinion, far left views, and we're going to let the homeless. We're going to try to take care of them. Yeah. As I saw in the last council meeting, they put their hand up and they tried to help with the tiny homes. It was great initiative, just not well thought out. But there's definitely no enforcement there. So the enforcement to the police always has to come from city council. That's who directs them. There was a lot of laws that police didn't enforce all throughout the pandemic.
Absolutely,
that public health would pass or the government pass, and the gatherings of people, things like that, and the cops would just turn a blind eye because they weren't really directed to do so. And that's where enforcement always comes from, is directives from the elected officials. There's not that will right now from any of the elected officials. I shouldn't judge this council. There's been one meeting.
Right. That's right.
Again, I'm optimistic things are going to change. They have to change. It's not.
Well, we had a talk with Jeff Leal there, and before he got elected, and that was one of the things he ran on about, really looking at the homeless situation and coming up with solutions. And the solution wasn't endorsing Tent Cities. He didn't say he would endorse them. He didn't say he wouldn't endorse them. Yeah. But what he mostly talked about was finding ways to help people help themselves in the homeless population.
Well, Mr. Leal, when he was running, and during our interview, I asked him kind of a pressing question in regards to that. And Jeff is a lifetime politician. He knows how to handle a question, and I am no journalist that way, right? I'm just a guy with a podcast. But he brought up, and he never used PATH in and of itself, their name directly, but he talked about sleeping pods, and he talked about different solutions in that. And he talked about, looking to Europe and some of the things that are there. Again, a little bit lefty, a little bit farther left than I would probably tend to go in a lot of these situations, but that's fine. We got to find a solution. And I think that homelessness probably leans a little left in their advocacy. However, it sounds like Jeff, after that meeting that other day, Mr. Leal, after that council meeting, is that he is still trying to find a solution to this. Although some of the people within the organization of PATH are screaming and yelling for his head because we can't wait till February. And that's where it's like, I think we've got to figure out the efficacy of an emergency and how an emergency requires efficacy, and is it emergency enough to desire the efficacy? Like, that's we're kind of at a loggerheads right now. You've got a group of people that are like, I don't know if that's the right thing.
But we've also had 2 years of them living through the winters and making it just fine. Like typically what happens is they'll head indoors to the shelters when it gets really cold. And so that's the obvious solution there. So I'm not sure about, I really want to see something happen quickly, but I'm not convinced it has to be done by February. Like a poorly thought out plan implemented quickly isn't great.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's,
I think we have to come up with a temporary plan, but you're right. We need a well thought out plan. What would you need to say? So path opens up right in front of Runner's Life between you and your place where you live downtown. It's right there. The 10 tiny homes opens up right across the street. What would you need to see there to make it okay for you?
It'd be no problem. I would want to see that they're getting addiction help and mental health help. So great, you have a place to stay, and I don't have any problem. There's a methadone clinic a few doors down from me, and it was there 8 years before I even knew what it was. And it's people who are trying to, it's people who are trying to get clean. Like people are like, oh, why there's so many methadone clinics downtown. And I was like, well, that's where the homeless are.
Yeah.
You don't put them in the West End. And then these are the people who are trying to get off drugs. So like, Dave, you have one like really close to your store. I'm like, good. That's great. I want to be part of the solution. So yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, we just opened a nice park. The Louis Street parking lot finally opened downtown, scheduled to open June 2021. So right on time.
For Peterborough, that is right on time. I'm just saying. Actually, it's a little early for Peterborough.
Yes. So it just opened this past week, and for sure, that's homeless are going to be heading there as we speak right now. And there's going to be tents there and all that stuff.
Does it not seem like that park has just been perfectly designed for that exact purpose, though?
Yes. Yeah.
Like when you look at it, I don't understand. Like I am no architect.
Sure.
And I am certainly not bougie enough to understand the apparent architectural structure that we've decided for downtown Peterborough. I didn't know Peterborough was that bougie.
Yeah.
But we've gone with a very modern looking concrete slab of a park right downtown Peterborough. Yeah. And I don't understand it.
What's that park called?
Quaker Foods Oat Park, something like that. Quaker Oats Foods Park. Yeah. The different name rights. It's great. Pardon?
Yeah. James, are you pulling it up?
Yeah, you go ahead. So you're not saying that you don't think that that there should be people in these tiny homes. You just want it done the right way and you want the right facilities in place, right?
It's all fine. No, and had the tiny home people done some due diligence, they would have realized like it's not zoned for the place that and neither is the park, the Louis Street Park that we were just chatting about. So you can't stick houses there until you figure out a right place. So, where is this park going to be is the biggest question, because it's NIMBY. But I don't care if it's downtown. It needs to be downtown because that's where all the homeless are. But where is it going to be? And if it's going to be right next to Runner's Life, I'm okay with that. That's going to be part of the solution. And I think that's fine. I think we all look at the big picture. If homelessness is less of an issue downtown, then it'll bring more people downtown. So I don't really care where it goes, but it needs to be thought out a little bit. And they were just throwing darts at a board the other night. And I was a little disappointed to see that it quite easily got defeated because it wasn't as thought out.
Yeah, I looked at a few pictures here, but very little in regards to it. But as you can see here, folks, like there's a couple round looking cubes that we decided to throw on a concrete slab. And I just, is that, I appreciate Quaker Oats and what they've done for the community, I guess, by doing that. But that's going to be a mess in a year.
Well, there's also a beautiful skating rink that's there, and they're going to
like skating in July is a real bitch.
They're going to do some other things.
Really hard on the shoes. I know a guy to get some shoes now, but
there we go.
That's right. Yeah. No, you know what? Like I was pretty excited about the fact that they were updating and they were doing some stuff downtown to make it back to, getting excited about bringing tourists back. And I think that's what this is all about. They're trying to make that whole street a touristy kind of walk kind of street. I don't know what their vision is. I think there are other ways they could have done it a little bit better, but I don't think they're wrong. I get the homeless. It is a good place for homeless people to be. Yeah, you're right. But homeless is going to be a problem that we're just going to have to deal with, unfortunately. That's not changing. I think what we need to do is make Peterborough a community where we celebrate community again. And I think we've gotten away from that a little bit. Like we do a lot of pointing fingers of, the problem's homelessness, the problem is this, the problem is that, the problems that we don't work, the problems that we that I don't know, Putin's in power. I don't know, but there's always someone outside of us that is the problem. And if we just got together and we started doing the things we used to do, like getting the hootenanny and the community groups where, we celebrate who Peterborough truly is, I think we could heal a lot of Peterborough and, work together to find a multifaceted solution for homelessness. And I personally think Path is on the right track. I think, like Pat said there, and like we've said to them, like, this is not something that we haven't said to them. I know that we talked to them. We said, you have a PR problem. The fact is that you're not voicing what you're trying to do effectively, concisely. Mostly your media is you yelling, you upset, you, how dare you? And it shouldn't be. It should be, this is our solution. This is what we're doing. We're going to do this, this, and this. This is how we're going to solve homelessness. Help us get it there. So right now, all they need is a place to stay.
They have a bit of a moral superiority problem, I think, at the moment, where it's like, if you don't think that homelessness is the number one cause or problem in the world, then you are a morally gapped person. And people are kind of like, well, okay. Right. So that's where I think that, I think that like I say with James, I was pleasantly surprised digging deeper into them. At first, the skin deep level, I wasn't super impressed. The problem is that once we dug deeper and we got talking with Scott, who he's an advocate who's out there in the community every day. Like, he's driving around, a former minister. He's talking with these people and he's like, hey, this is, I think, we could get people off the streets with these. So I don't mind that. Now, I'm a dollars and cents guy, David, like yourself, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's got to make sense. If you're asking for $100,000, you've got to show me what an ROI is going to look like. There has to be a return on that. There has to be some sort of interest that long-term, this is, one, sustainable, and two, potentially profitable for the community, right?
Not drain.
Sorry?
It won't be just a drain. It's got to, like, we're not trying to make money off the homeless, but they can contribute. And I'm down with that. There are ways they can contribute. Like Scott said last night, they get ODSP, they get welfare. They can contribute. They just can't contribute like what maybe you and I have. I'd like to full circle it. It's been an hour here. Dave, is a businessman himself. He's got to run probably early in the morning. Actually, he's recovering probably. I would like to get back to Runner's Life, which is not, that's not Runner's Life.
That's the park.
Which is not, just so you know, a franchise. I did not know that.
One and only.
So Runner's Life that you see around, like, because Runner's Life I thought was a franchise.
No, I was thinking of Running Room.
No, I thought that there was a Runner's Life. I thought it was like a Toronto franchise.
Oh no, there's a few running stores. Like, there's Runner's Choice, there's Runner's Core, there's Running Free. We all have the name Runner in our name,
right?
Yeah, we're not. No one's that original. So yeah, no, this is the one and only, and we all talk to each other. We're all pretty friendly with each other, and it's.
So how do you find, Dave, about obviously you're a brick and mortar store downtown Peterborough. How are you finding that online presence is more and more important in your business?
Yeah, you got to be in the space for sure, but still, vast majority of sales are brick and mortar.
At Tiger Woods.
Yeah, he's wearing some UFOs and some sandals we sell.
Those are cool.
Yeah, he's got foot problems and he's wearing Nikes. So you don't wear Nikes.
Is that a thing?
It's a thing.
Okay, so tell me, as a guy, I'm not a runner, right? We went over this. We have truly established that the fear of running is more so a thing than mine. But, like, what is the difference between, the $80 shoe that you buy at Sports Check and something that you folks are offering.
Yeah, so it's just what's in the shoe. So you're just paying for, the foam is basically, it's called the midsole. It's the white foamy stuff you see on the bottom. That's where all the money is. So you can get really cheap organic stuff that, that's what you'll find in the $89 shoes. And then you find some really nice foams. They just cost a little bit more to buy and to produce. And that's why the shoes cost more, but then they absorb so much more shock. They have way more stability if that's what you're looking for. So your foot doesn't pronate, so then you don't get knee problems. So like the one thing you need as a runner is a good shoe, because it is a pounding repetitive sport. You hear of all the runners' issues, but all that stuff can go away with the right shoe, or at least prevent it. You can still do silly things, but the shoe makes a huge difference. So you want to get a nice one.
It's funny. So first it was the shoe, because you and I had that exact talk. I said, okay, I have shoes. Like, why do I need new shoes? And he explained it very well. And we went through some shoes, and the difference is phenomenal. And I told Pat the same thing. He's like, I got shoes. They're fine. I'm like, no, they're not fine. But then I know now socks are a thing. Like, because I was just wearing cotton socks and it was tearing my feet apart running. Because now that I'm doing more than a 10K, it's just ripping up my feet a little bit, like very coarse. So I got the socks now, and the socks, it's funny, as I go, I learn a little bit more about the equipment that you need, especially with like you sweat a lot. So like just to go buy a t-shirt, so I was wearing t-shirts, my nipples started chafing. Because
that was my next question. I'll be like, exactly where do you put the band-aid?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we sell all this stuff, and running, it's a great sport. You can spend a lot of money on all this stuff. I mean, it's but at its heart, I try to keep it simple. I tell people get into, like, look, you need a good pair of shoes and probably a good pair of socks. And after that, the rest of this stuff is nice to have. Like, you can wear your old sweatpants and stuff, but it's just going to be nicer if you have the nice stuff, especially as winter comes. A lot of people just start hibernating, and I tell them, like, don't, just get some good stuff, and you can go out at -20, wind chill. We're out running by the airport, and by Old Norwood Road, and out by Trent, and the wind's just howling. And you're like, I don't even notice it. People see us running. Like, I saw you running. You look like a fool out there. I'm like, I didn't even notice. I was quite comfortable.
And it's hilarious because we'll walk in and Dave will look at us and go, you're wearing too much. You're wearing too much. And he's absolutely right. Halfway through the run, I'm like soaked and I want to peel off layers. But it's cold out. Like, it's minus temperature and you're just wearing too much. And it's a learning curve. This little massager is very popular after the long run. So just throw that in there. What were you going to say, Pat?
Well, I think you're bang on. Like, when I used to run back in, the day, I was doing it for like work related purposes. It was important that, you run in all types of weather conditions. And I loved running in like late November, that rainy, cold, crappy, shitty weather, maybe like the first or second snowfall. That was fun to me. I enjoyed that. And now I'm just fat and lazy. So I just got to motivate myself to get up and going. So how do you deal with that, Dave? Like, obviously you've got a community you've built there, but like, what's the important facet about, motivating, get people to get up and do that?
Yeah. So like anything, it's got to come from within. The group is there and it's great, but if it's not something you want to do, you won't succeed. So all change comes from within. A lot of time I'll drag my ass there and get to the group, and the group will get me through. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like it. It's crappy out. I just want to go home and have a beer. But if I just show up and I'll say, like, look, I'm not going to do the workout. I'm just going to run easy tonight, and then get dragged along and do a workout. And you never regret going for a run. You always come back. You feel fantastic. And you're like, wow, I was glad I got out for that. So, this, obviously we all struggle with motivation throughout the time, and, a good podcast will get me out the door, but this
Soaring Profits, maybe
that I'm going to definitely check out the catalog.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. But,
blatant plug.
Blatant for sure. No, this is great. And especially hearing about some of your guests there. It's going to be great.
So what is your next big thing, Dave? What do you have Do you have because I know you put on events yourself, like it's not just like Toronto puts on their marathons. You put on events in Peterborough. You did the Pet Value one during the summer there that I joined in, and it was really well run.
Nice.
What's coming up next?
So I think we're going to try to bring back our full slate of events next year. So
Okay.
COVID, took all events out. And then we finally got the green light in April to start putting on community events. So the green light is the city issuing a permit to use the facilities and shut down the roads and things like that. So you can't do anything until they say yay. We did put on a cross-country race each year in a park through COVID. And we just did it with all the mandates and stuff and did 50 people and capped it and things like that, had waves and stuff. And then people were just too afraid to attend them. So numbers were down, but it's time to bring them all back. So now the big question will be whether we have the capacity to do it. So everyone knows staffing is a major issue. So, and small business is not exempt from that. So we can't get enough staff to fill all the hours. So, can we put on large scale events? I hope so. We've hired a bunch of new staff. We got great staff. If everyone works out, then we'll have the capacity. So we put on, they're going to have a St. Patty's Day race. So that parade has been canceled for 3 years.
They canceled it again?
No, sorry. It went down for 3 years. This is going to be the first year back.
First year back. Okay.
Yeah. And we piggyback.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah, no, it's back.
Good Irishman, I would be furious.
Yes.
That
was the first day of COVID. I'm not sure if you remember back then. It was March 7th.
Yeah.
And our St. Patty's Day 5K got canceled with like 2 days notice.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, wow, this moved fast. They canceled my permit and said, you can't put on the race. The parade got canceled. But we're going to put on that. That'll be our first event, St. Patrick's Day 5K. So we do that along with the parade because all of George Street is shut down. We all put on green shirts and run up and down from the Memorial Center to City Hall and back on George. So it's pretty fun. We're basically the opening float of the parade. Yeah, that'd be good. And then we put on the Stony Lake Triathlon. We put on the Kids Triathlon. We put on the Run for Mental Health. And then we're involved in a few other runs, the Butterfly Run and the Zoo Run we're involved with. We're involved with the YMCA
What's the Butterfly Run, Dave? Sorry.
So the Butterfly Run, that's one that a volunteer group puts that on. They raise money for PIPSI, Partners in Pregnancy. These are for people who are either have fertility issues or have had problems with fertility, things like that. But it's a massively successful run. Like each year they raise $35,000, $40,000 for the charity. They get 700 people out to the event. It's at Millennium Park. So they put it on there every year. It's massively successful.
Nice.
And we're involved that one as a sponsor, and we time it. Maybe we're going to do more with that this year. We're going to see where they're at. But all these runs are now scheduled to come back. And the Run for Mental Health, that's my personal favorite. We put that on in September, and we raised $20,000 3 years ago for CMHA and the Yes Shelter.
Yep.
And so that one, we shut down the downtown streets. It starts and finishes right in front of Runner's Life. It's a good event, right? So and again, it's bringing people downtown. It's being healthy. It's being active. It's, returning to normalcy. So I think we're ready to have all that. So it just means a lot of work for me.
Yeah.
But
you've just been hanging around for 3 years. What else?
Yeah, you've been doing nothing, just planning.
Yes.
But it's not exclusively to Peterborough citizens, right? Like, so if someone wanted to come from like Quebec or
they draw events from all over. So we got some good stats. The Kids Try is like 80% of the kids are from out of town. It's crazy.
Really?
Cool. So they all come, they stay in hotels and they generate, income for Peterborough. So, I just went to this race in California and they did a little study, and the race brought $12 million into the economy. And, we stayed at an Airbnb, we ate and drank, we spent our money, we did our thing. We visited the local emergency room.
Yeah, she did. I heard that story today on
Yeah, so our money went into that economy. So these
Yeah.
races, they build the economies of the places,
Mhm.
as well as spirit, and then just promoting health and wellness and fitness. I think is a good tie in there. So yeah, we're really excited to bring all that stuff back.
Cool.
So the best way to find out about all these races, to be alerted by these races, would be to become a member of your Facebook page
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
is
just
there
follow our
something-
socials at Runner's Life, and then
yeah.
every race has its own social media page as well. Every race
Okay.
does, but we promote them all, and we're involved in all
Yeah.
of them. So if you're, you can go to our website, and there'll be links there, or just follow our social media.
Yeah.
Is the easiest.
So if you follow this, like they'll pop up.
Yep.
What you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll promote them, months in advance. You can sign up and do all that fun stuff. So yeah, it's a good running community. We're lucky here. I mean, that's the reason we moved here, was because the running here is good. You're not running in a big city where there's stoplights in a concrete jungle. Like, we got Jackson Park, we got the Hastings Trail, we got the Rotary Trail, all right at our back door.
Which one is the Hastings Trail?
So that heads from Beavermead, basically, all the way down to Hastings. And it's the old rail trails that a couple of the guys have refurbished. And so you can run all the way to Hastings. It actually keeps going. It's part of the Trans-Canada Trail. It goes all the way to Prince Edward County. So
what would that be from Peterborough to Hastings on that trail, distance-wise?
Well, let me tell you. It is 36 kilometers, because we did a ton of training on that. For the marathon I just ran. So we ran Peterborough to Hastings 3 times.
Now that's one way?
That's one way, yeah. And we were lucky enough to have shuttles, like people pick us up with a case of beer at the end. It was just lovely.
See, that's cool. Like that's interesting. And I don't think enough people realize some of the community stuff that's out there in Peterborough. Unfortunately, it's just people bury themselves in their phones. They bury themselves in their, day-to-day monotony. Yeah. And finding unique little, things that are going on, whether it be, plays and productions, whether it be sports and activities like what you guys are doing. I think Peterborough, we've got to just really all work together to try to get some of this messaging out and really shine light on some of the amazing things, like the shoe drive that you do. Like, I'm still kind of blown away by that.
Yeah, I know, right? When I heard about it, I was like shocked.
Yeah. Like, that's pretty amazing to have, $300-400 pair of running shoes on some guys down there that are, living in a tent.
Yeah.
Like that says a lot about what your organization is doing, what you're doing, and from there. So no, I think that's pretty cool. That's very nice.
So I think we should probably wrap this up. We're 1 hour and 17. You've been amazing, Dave. You're exactly what I was thinking you'd be. Inspirational. You just know a lot about a lot of things, and I really appreciate it. I know we solved a lot of problems today. I'm going to send this over to the council and Jeff Leal, and they can just go over the notes and then just come up with the plan that we created.
That's it.
So I really do think we're going to be all right. So at the end here, we kind of put you on the spot, Dave. I don't know if you watched obviously if you watch our shows, so you already know this because everyone watches our stuff. But at the end, we have taglines. Both of us Pat and I have a tagline, and any of our guests on Thursday night, we ask them to come up on the spot with a tagline. So I will kind of do a ending kind of here, or a wrap up, and then I do my tagline. Pat does his, and then it goes to you, just so you know. So Dave, I'm so happy that you finally came on. This is something I've been bugging you about since I think probably a month after I started running there. I mentioned it to you, and then you're like, I just too busy. Like, my life is, and I got that as I watched it progress into marathons and stuff like that. I think that a lot of the stuff that you do is amazing. I've been in a lot of the things that you've organized. The bus trip to Toronto for the half marathon, the marathon, and the 5 was so well done. It was a lot of fun. I have created great friends from that I talk to every day, and I hang out with, and I go for runs. Like, the community that you have built is a friendship that's next level. And I thank you for it, for me, because it's helped me out. But I also think what you built in Peterborough is a beautiful thing. And I bet you that if you build it, all those people would help you out. I know I would help you out in a second. And you're a great man and a great business leader in Peterborough. And I thank you very much for coming on our show. people out there, I don't know if you guys know, we did Soaring Profits and Friends out there, some inspirational messages from some of our past guests. I've linked them all together into one video. It's called Soaring Profits and Friends. I also added a musical guest. Hopefully in January, we'll be doing something similar. So if you get a chance, check out Soaring Profits and Friends. I'd like you to kind of write down what you think about it, maybe give me some ideas for the future, something to change. And as always, let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
Yeah. So, David, again, thank you for coming on with tonight. I've heard a lot about you for a long time. This guy here might be a little bit of a fan of you, and he obviously you've affected his life in a great way, and a lot of other people. So, I appreciate what you're doing in our community, and if there's anything we can do to help you and assist you in what you were doing, I'd love to, and I know James would as well. So, everyone out there, thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, and share. Check us out. And David, this is where we stick you with that motivational little snippet, but let's make some money together, folks. Here we go, David.
All right. Well, I can think a lot about the process and the journey. So I'll say it's all about the journey.
I love
Perfect.
it. And it's so